So last night was the final night of the Dorothy Arzner retrospective at UCLA. They did a double feature of Dance Girl Dance, which is arguably her most famous film, and The Bride Wore Red. I've seen The Bride Wore Red many times. It's one of my favorite movies. It stars Queen of My Heart, Joan Crawford, and French Tone, who at one point were married, and they made several films together, and they have great chemistry. And Robert Young, who I never really liked. I wrote a whole long essay on The Bride Wore Red a few years ago, so if you go to my website, you can read that. But I had never seen Dance Girl Dance, surprisingly, even though it's her, like most famous film, most written about film, most discussed film. So I finally got to see it, and it's an interesting film. Some background: when it was released, it was a critical and box office failure. It lost RKO a ton of money. It sort of got hidden away. It was not a film that was well regarded or well remembered until several years later, in the 70s, when there started to be feminist film studies. The film was rediscovered and reappraised and lauded for its portrayal of strong women. And now it's a film that's always discussed when talking about films directed by women and feminist films. And I'll get to my thoughts on that in a second. So it's directed by Dorothy Arzner, and it was edited by Robert Wise, who his very next film was editing Citizen Kane, and then, as you know, later won Best Director for West Side Story and The Sound of Music. And it was written by Tess Schlesinger, who also wrote The Bride Wore Red. It was like a double with both writer-director last night. It's about a troupe of dancing girls, notably led by Maureen O'Hara and Lucille Ball, who are under an ex-Russian ballerina played by Marya Openskaya, who, your classic films, your Marya Openskaya. They are working in a gig in Akron when the place gets busted for illegal gambling, and they both meet this rich man who is on the verge of divorce, and they both have some interaction with him, but he's so out of it that neither of them really get much out of him. One, Maureen O'Hara, it's emotions, and for the other, Lucille Ball, it's, Baba Boom, if you know what I mean. They get back to New York, and Lucille Ball ends up working as a hula dancer and then later a burlesque queen. Maureen O'Hara wants to be a ballet dancer, but because of some tragedies, her one chance to maybe get to do that kind of messes up. Tragedy and her own inability to realize her own talent, which I think is something Arzner often discusses in her films, women's inability to see their own value. And generally, I feel it's not Dorothy Arzner critiquing women so much as the way women are raised in society to not value themselves. I think that's a main theme in a lot of Arzner's films. Eventually, they all end up in this sort of love triangle, kind of, with the guy played by Louis I don't know if it's Louis Hayward or Louis Hayward, but he's really creepy in he's from South Africa. He's really and he was married to Ida Lupino. He's really creepy in The House by the River, I believe. Hold on, let's see. Right? Yeah, he's really creepy in The House by the River, and apparently he's in The Magnificent Ambersons. But if you've ever seen The House by the River, you can never see him and think, oh, he's cute. Instead, you're like, no, psychopath, don't do anything with him, because he's really good in The House by the River. That's a great noir. So as far as feminist critique goes in this film, there are aspects of it that are very, very, very feminist. For example, when they're doing the hula dancing audition for the man who runs the club in Hoboken, are Arzner's holding on the man's face, both when he's nonplussed with Maureen O'Hara and when he's titillated by Lucille Ball, is so like raw, and so she just keeps this tight shot on this guy's face, and it's the most like sort of looking for it's the most obvious use of the male gaze I've ever seen, and it's her as a director showing you the male gaze, and it's fucking brilliant. Like every time I saw that shot, it's so modern and so terrifying, and not a horror film, not a horror way. Just the way that she frames this man is just like how she feels about men. I think says everything you need to know about her. She did not like men. It's great. She's so great. And then Ralph Bellamy's in here as a owner of the like head guy at the American Ballet Company, and eventually you hope he will hire Maureen O'Hara. But there were aspects of it that are still sort of very catty and women against women, and those moments kind of felt like they were betraying the other moments. But then at the same time, they're very real because women were and are often still taught to see each other as rivals for everything instead of as sisters and as companions and as allies. So I think she very astutely tackles that idea, but eventually the women realize that they are each other's allies and they are there for each other, and they're not trying to take each other's lives. And it's kind of a beautiful look at that friendship. Lucille Ball steals this movie. She is a star with a capital S. She is everything. It's when you're raised watching I Love Lucy, and then you go back and you watch her film roles, and they're so different, but still so full of power and prowess, and just like va va boom, as they say, or oomph. They say oomph. It's astonishing. She's just so good, so good. So this film is on DVD, I believe, and it's on TCM all the time, and you should be able to find it somewhere because it's her most acclaimed film, and not a hard one to find. And the clip with the hula dancing slash critique of the male gaze is on YouTube if you want to watch it and see what I'm talking about. I'm really grateful to UCLA for showing this retrospective. I'm sad that I missed a handful of the films. I'm hoping I can find those somewhere. But I'm grateful for all the ones that I got to see. And I'm so grateful that I got to see Joan Crawford last night, because last year a fifth of the films that I watched were Joan Crawford films, and this year I haven't been able to watch any Joan Crawford, and I miss her. She is my queen. So thank you, UCLA. Seek out Dorothy Arzner's films. She was a brilliant filmmaker, and seeing it as a retrospective, you can see the through line. The plots may not seem similar, but there is a thematic through line through all of her films, and she's an important American director and an important director, period, and she should be discussed and watched and analyzed and cherished because she's great, and I'm just so grateful that UCLA allowed me to do that this last couple of months.